Hi.
Welcome to Book Pop. I'm Jamie Anderson.
And I'm Molly Fish.
And I was in a hit and run this weekend.
What? Oh my God.
So I told you we went to Kettle Black for dinner.
Yes.
And I was a little vague on it. The food was great. The experience was a little...
In the parking lot on the way there, on the way home? I need all the details.
Yes. We parked in front of the restaurant on Monroe Street. We were in the restaurant for like 2 hours. We had our meals. We got dessert. We had a coffee, taking our sweet time. And I walk outside the restaurant. We're like walking towards the car, which is right across the street, like through the windows. And my bumper is laying on the ground, like 2 feet in front of my car.
The front bumper?
The front bumper.
And there's no car in front of you anymore?
In front of me. There's like shards of white and silver from whatever car hit me. And I'm just like staring at it. And Stuart is like, what the?
Oh.
And these 3 people come, like, get out of the car behind us. And they're like, this happened 5 minutes ago. We saw them. It was a white Toyota van. She's like, somebody ran after them. I don't know where they went.
Ran after them?
So
that's so kind.
Well, somebody was not. And
did they say more about, like, were they trying to park and they hit you and then they drove away? Or was it like, did they say what happened?
They didn't really say what happened other than they hit the car and drove away.
Oh my God.
And I was just in shock because I don't feel like people are that terrible, but apparently
no,
they are.
They are.
Like I could never hit a car and then just leave the scene of an accident.
No.
So I bussed here today.
Oh, no. Did you bust yesterday too?
No, Stuart drove me here yesterday and he picked me up because I was being a little passenger princess and like super sad about my car. And my car runs fine.
Oh, does it? Because I was going to say, you just got that back working again.
Girl.
The money that you put into it. I guess it was more time than money.
It was time and yeah. But yeah, so my bumper is off of my car right now and it drives fine, but I'm like, I'm not driving my car around without a bumper on it.
No.
It looks ridiculous.
Are the headlights out? Like the glass part?
Headlights are fine.
So it was there.
There was like a little crack in my bumper before, which may have saved the whole situation because it just like popped off more than like
crumpled.
More damage.
Oh, so the body of the car is okay?
The body of the car is fine.
My God.
Stuart, like the wheel well, like the plastic wheel well that we needed to order a new one of that. And then basically just like the clips that'll put my bumper back up there. With shipping, it's like $40 some.
Because Stuart can just do it all.
Stuart is amazing and can fix
oh my God.
everything that I break.
But that is still very traumatic.
I was so upset.
Oh my God.
And we had such a good dinner.
I was going to say, was Kettle Black great at least? So you can...
It was really great. And it deserved better than...
To be associated with your hit and run?
Yes.
Oh.
Everything is supposed to arrive on like Wednesday.
Okay.
And then I go out of town for a few days.
Yeah. Decompress.
By the time I get back, Stuart will have it fixed.
Oh my God. I can't believe that happened.
I wanted to tell you so bad yesterday. I'm like, I'm saving it for the podcast because this is drama.
That is dramatic.
Yeah.
Your poor car.
She's a trooper.
She's got the worst luck though.
Seriously.
I'm so sorry. My trip to Bar Corleone last night, no drama at all.
No drama at all.
No drama.
I'm very happy to hear that because on your birthday, you deserve.
That's true.
You don't deserve drama.
I would have fallen apart. It was the end of a very long birthday weekend. When we had like we had a similar like very long 2-hour like let's just order we did a appetizer and then a pizza course where we like split a pizza, and then we did a pasta course where we each got pasta, and then we did dessert, and then we did limoncello. Like we did all the things, and it was amazing. Shout out to Lila, who is like GMing it right now. Okay. Who's our friend, and she gave us like a free dessert and because it was my birthday and was really sweet. Yeah. Nice. She's the temp GM while their GM is out. So,
okay. What kind of pasta did you get?
Of course I got the bolognese.
Yes.
Our favorite.
So good.
I was so tempted by other ones and I always want to try other things, but then I'm like, okay, but what if I don't like it as much as the one that I know that I love? But Carl got the shrimp and vodka sauce one. So I got to have a little bit of that too, which was nice. It was great. Everything was so good.
Yeah.
We get the eggplant fritters as the appetizer. Have you had those?
I haven't had them. The garbanzo fries.
Oh,
have you had them? They're a sleeper on the menu.
I think I did try that one time when we were just there for like drinks and we got the fries.
They're so good.
Everything there is so good.
So you want to go for pasta, garbanzo fries? Like, does that sound appealing? But they are so good.
Everything they do.
Yeah.
I will be great. But yeah, it was not dramatic. It was, and then we went home and everything was fine.
Everything was fine.
But I did have a very long, crazy weekend for my birthday, but in a great way.
I was here on Friday for your party. That was supposed to end at 10 p.m. But didn't.
Did not. And then I left at midnight and then had to be back here to open the store the next morning. And I was like, oh, mistakes were made. But it was super fun and worth it. And my whole family was in town and I had a lot of friends come out and a lot of book people too that we know from the book world and podcast people. If we're going to talk about what are we reading?
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to Maggie Ginsberg, who was also at my party and who signed a bunch of copies of her book, Still True. I have just started reading it because I was embarrassed to admit on an earlier episode that I had not read it yet, even though I know and love Maggie Ginsberg. And then Jamie was pitching it and I was like, oh my God, I have to read this book. It sounds so good.
This is one of my 5-star reads.
Yes.
That Maggie wrote, and it's amazing. How are you liking it so far?
I'm obsessed with it. I was like, I just thought I'd open, I was in the market for a new book. So, you go to your TBR pile and you're like, all right, what am I going to pick? And it's like this fun little, I always get like a jolt of adrenaline when I get to like pick a new book that I'm going to start. So sometimes I will open a book and like read a couple sentences and feel like, is this the vibe right now?
Yeah.
I'm very much of the opinion, I don't know if you've heard this, but I saw it on Instagram one time and it really stuck with me that your TBR pile is like a wine cellar.
I did read this.
Have we talked about it yet? Because I now say it to customers all the time and it is my favorite thing. Your TBR is like a wine cellar. You are collecting books that you will read on a certain occasion. It's not about like, oh, you have to read every book in your house. You don't drink every bottle of wine in your wine cellar right away, right? It's all about curating a collection that you are interested in and that will taste great for certain occasions. Yeah. So like to me, I was like tasting the wines in my TBR wine cellar. Like, does this taste good for right now? How does this taste? And it doesn't mean if I put something back, like I'll maybe read that later, but it's not what I want right now. Yeah. Well, I started the first couple pages of Still True. And then I just like sat down on my bed and just kept like, I couldn't stop reading. And then I ended up reading straight through like 50 pages without stopping, even though that wasn't the plan for like that part of my day. I thought I was just going to like test out which ones I was going to read next. But it hooked me so fast with the characters and with the imagery of like summer in Wisconsin. Yeah. I got hooked. I was into it. I was like, what's going to happen? What are these characters? She's building suspense so well while also like introducing you to the characters. So there's still like plot happening. I was in. So I'm really excited. Thank you for finally pushing me to do it. And then like later that day, I saw Maggie Ginsberg and I was like, oh no, now I'm going to be nervous around you because I'm reading your book and it's so good. But we have signed copies at the store. If you're interested and you haven't picked one up yet, highly recommend. So yeah, I'm getting caught up on my Jamie recommendations. Yes. We realized we've just been recommending things to each other because of this podcast that we both want to read.
Read all the books that you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one you're doing?
Well, on the same note of your 5-star reads, 4,000 Weeks, which I'm about 50 pages in because I did the same thing. I was just like, oh,
let's see what this is. Yeah.
And you are so right. Like thinking about time in a way that like it's finite. You don't have 300,000 weeks. You have, if you're lucky, 4,000 weeks.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, what are you going to do with the time that you have in your life? And how are you going to make it worth it? And that concept of having time versus what time is.
Right. It's not something we actually have.
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
Isn't it fascinating? And I love his dives into like history and philosophy and psychology.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was really fascinating how he was asking his friends, like, how many weeks do you think you live in a lifetime? And like just the absurd numbers that they were coming up with and just being like, nope.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to dive into this more.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Except be careful because like I've shared it with so many people. And for example, my dad read it and now he likes to tell me how many weeks he has lived already. And he'll
So cruel, Dad.
and it's rough to it's rough to hear that number.
Yeah.
So be careful. Thinking about mortality is a double-edged sword for sure. But it is important in terms of making sure we are spending our time, which is another thing he talks about. You spend time. It's not a thing you have. It's not a currency.
Right. Just living the life you want.
Living time. Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm glad you're liking it.
Yeah.
I also read, of course, I was always going to read Until August by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, but you read it first. And then you let me borrow your copy very kindly, which is the new posthumously published book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, one of my favorite authors. Like 100 Years of Solitude is one of my 5-star reads from that podcast. And it's such a beautiful little, it feels a little incomplete, but almost in like a unpolished stone kind of way where it's still really beautiful because of that. Like you can see where he was going in some ways. And that makes it interesting because you're like seeing it partway through the process of writing. I loved the story. I loved all his writing. Obviously, I loved the character.
The concept,
of course, which you already talked about, but it's this woman revisiting the island where her mother is buried every year in August and then takes a lover for an evening and is kind of like, it's an escape of her life. But I didn't like when you first described it to me, I didn't necessarily think about all of the different implications of that. Like sometimes like she does it accidentally the first time. And then the next time she's like actively trying to do it, but it doesn't work out. And then sometimes she tries and it goes badly or like I never thought about each little tryst is its own story. And that part was really awesome.
And then also like the realization of like why her mom chose to be buried there. And then the end, which we will not spoil, but I was dying for you to finish it, to just be like, what did you think of the ending?
I know.
Because I feel like it can be taken in so many different ways. And it's just kind of, like you said, I mean, it's abrupt, it's unfinished, but it's abrupt. It's kind of funny. It's off-putting a little bit.
It is. And you can see, again, like where he was going or where he might have gone with it. And it makes it even more interesting because it's kind of unfinished, but it has a very finished ending.
Yes.
Still.
Yes.
But without all the resolution necessarily that you want. But I loved it. It was worth it. And you were right. I read it in like, a couple hours. It's short. It's sweet. Highly recommend Until August by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Thank you for pushing me to read it sooner than later.
This one I have heard you recommend to so many customers that eventually a used copy came in and I just snagged it. But it's Educated by Tara Westover. And
it's one of my favorite memoirs of all time, especially by like someone who's not like a celebrity where you kind of know about their life anyway.
Yeah. Very inspiring, very reflective, especially on like her family dynamics. And she's got a big family and they live really off the grid. She starts to realize like, oh, I don't know everything. Like what my family tells me isn't necessarily what's true. And they're very religious and they don't go to the hospital when somebody gets hurt.
And they take her out of school like really early because they don't like that she
doesn't know the day she was born. Like there's no record of that. And it really like echoes the sentiment of education is power and where that takes her.
And like hiding books in her room and just the little vignettes of her life on that like compound that they have too. And the violence that would just like happen and
her brother gets so injured and they just like pray over his body and give him homemade salve. And like, how does he not die?
I know. But then her mom character and like the strength that's there in this like different way.
Yeah.
And it's like a different kind of education or a different kind of smarts that she has to try and kind of make up for the fact that they don't have real medicine. And she's creating all these like potions and lotions and salves and stuff. And she gets good at it, but it's only like you can only help to a point.
There's a point where like you have so much faith in the mom, like coming to a realization of like the situation. And then she just reverts to her husband. It's hard. Heartbreaking.
It's so hard.
And I feel like that's really the struggle that you get from Tara's writing is like understanding what exactly she was going through with that. And then at the end, when she just has to understand that her life will only be good if she embraces her education and letting go of stuff that doesn't serve her in like a really sad, but also very necessary way.
Yeah, it's a great lesson, but she learned it a really hard way.
Yes. But I loved it. Oh my God, it was so good.
It reads so fast too. You just start like eating it up.
Yeah. Yep.
I kept forgetting it was like a true story and a memoir.
Yeah.
I thought I was a novel. Like it's so well written also. And
yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to do one more. I know this is a lot of what are we readings, but like we're reading a lot. And also these are all of our, this is our catch up.
Talked about them already. So
right.
It's just.
So I won't go into too much detail, but I also started listening to The Age of Magical Overthinking by Amanda Montell because you recommended the audiobook and I needed a new audiobook, which we love doing nonfiction audiobooks like this. Yeah. So I've been listening to it. And my favorite thing that I'll just call out that I heard so far was she was using the phrase conspirituality, which is like the place on the internet where conspiracy theory and like kind of fake homeopathic spirituality has created this like gateway for people, especially during the pandemic, to like get pulled into like QAnon and other conspiracy theories. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. And she's like, yeah, what you see is like a nondescript white woman wearing like a big hat and beads and talking about like namaste. And she's kind of like making fun of those people. Then she's like, those are actually some of the biggest gateway into QAnon routes that people find because you start being like, oh, don't take the vaccine, you know, because there's a lot of like anti-vax movements amongst those kinds of white moms and, you know, but and so people go down that rabbit hole and it was so fascinating. I was like, conspirituality, what a great term. And I feel like she dives into a lot of those cool concepts like you were talking about. So I'm having a great time. I'm learning things.
So good.
And I'm very entertained. Both.
Yep. Great book. Okay. Also real quickly, you mentioned The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo and you finished it and I stole your copy. And I'm a few chapters into it and I just have to say, this is coming on my trip with me and I'm just going
to revel in it.
Yes.
Even though it's a hardcover.
I know, you know what? I have gone back and forth about it. Like, should I just take a paper bag that I can shove in my bag? But I'm taking it.
I mean, sometimes there's books like that where you're like, I cannot be parted from this book. I have to continue reading it.
I also just want like the 3 hours alone with it that I can just get a chunk read and like be in it.
Be careful because like, remember when I was late to the podcast because I was finishing it and you're like going to hang out with your friends this weekend and you're going to be like, sorry.
Yes, I have to bring my book.
That was like me reading Fourth Wing on vacation with my family last summer. And I was like, nobody talk to me.
I'm busy.
I know this is our family vacation weekend, but I'm busy and you cannot talk to me right now.
There might be a little bit of that. But I love it so far.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. We're all caught up on what we're reading then.
Yes.
And today, our main topic that we want to talk about is celebrity book clubs. Specifically, there's a new one that's just starting. There's a couple that have like popped up recently. That makes us want to talk about it. We also will have an announcement at the end of this podcast, if you stick with us through the whole thing, that you might be excited about, which is related to celebrity book clubs. We wanted to start by talking about this article that I read from The Cut, and it's called "Why Does Every Famous Woman Have a Book Club Now?" I thought it was a hilarious title, and it was so related to something I've been thinking because I feel like I keep getting inundated with celebrity women who have started a book club or who they have one, and I didn't even know they had one. Yeah. And I was like, is this like just a trendy new thing? And the article is really great. I recommend it on The Cut. But two of her big takeaways, especially related to this newest book club, which is Dakota Johnson's book club called Tea Time that she just announced.
What a great name for a book club.
Tea Time? Tea Time. I know, it's cute.
I like it.
Is it too late to change our podcast name? Dang it. She already took it. But anyway, the two big takeaways that the article talks about in The Cut of why we think this is a trend right now, and we're Book Pop, we like to talk about trends in book culture.
Right.
One of them is it's almost like carrying around like the status symbol handbag is like celebrities having their book that they're repping. It's kind of like, especially if it's one that really takes off and they have their stamp on it, it's like a status symbol thing. And it's,
Sure.
I feel like that speaks to the trendiness of books in this moment, especially for women. It's such a pop culture phenomenon, not only with like Book Talk and Bookstagram, but these specific book clubs that people rally around. It's like influencer culture, but then on steroids a little bit, because they're like big celebrities who can just say, yeah, read this book. And then like
Everybody buys that.
everybody buys that book. But it also is very capitalist culture, because some of them, like especially Oprah and Reese Witherspoon, will do some synergy with their businesses where they will buy the movie rights to a book that then they also put their book club stamp on the book. They're going to generate publicity for their movie or TV show that they're creating. And they're going to potentially get some of the book club rights. I don't know what the financial deal is, but yeah, exactly.
For the book.
Putting their weight behind it, they can really get a lot of media for their adaptations that they own. So I feel like there's a lot of synergy going on, and adaptations of books are so popular right now. I feel like some good examples of this with Reese Witherspoon's book club was like Big Little Lies.
I loved that series.
That show was so good.
Yes.
And she's like in it, right? I mean, she was in it.
A lot of female actors too, and I think that's something that's special about hers, is she's like empowering a lot of other female actors
and female authors. Totally.
There's this idea in Hollywood that once you're past a certain age, like you don't get work, and she's generating that work.
Specifically for those women that were over 40, over 50, and I know that was a great show. But the OG book club, Celebrity Book Club, was Oprah.
In 1996, she started it. I liked Oprah's book club, especially in the beginning when she still had her
talk show,
daytime talk show, because there was also a lot of synergy with that. She would have the author on. There would be a lot of hype around it.
And they would do like audience Q&As with the author. Like it's almost like that was a book club. Like the show was a book club. I agree.
And I remember being into it then.
She also, because she's had a book club for almost 30 years, she had some like controversial picks where then those books would be debunked later. Do you remember that, like A Million Little Pieces? Or I think that was the name.
Okay.
There was a book where this guy wrote a memoir, and then it turns out that he made it all up. And it was like an Oprah pick. Like it was such a big deal. So they were questions about her like actually vetting these books, but it's like, you know, if you're picking books for 30 years, you're gonna have some stinkers. I don't know, like it's got to be hard. One of her most recent picks last year was The Covenant of Water, which was this huge brick of a book.
Dude, it is so big.
By Abraham Verghese. Yes. And it's really great by, you know, almost all critically acclaimed. Readers who actually read it love it, but it's a little intimidating. And everyone was like, why is Oprah pushing this big ass book on people? And it did do really well all summer because of that. And then, of course, this year, guess what the announcement was? She has picked up the right for a new adaptation of Covenant of Water that's coming out. Like, I don't remember if it's a movie or show, but it was like, oh, okay, it's all clicking together. Yeah. We were all wondering, why is Oprah pushing this crazy giant book so hard? That was why. So, you know, we're out here making money, people, a little bit. But I think she still really picks great books that she genuinely reads and stands behind. And I think that's probably true of a lot of these, is like, even though how they pick them might be that they're getting pitched by publishers, like, hey, pick this book. I do believe most of these women who are putting their stamps on these book clubs are like actually reading the book and enjoy it and say, yes, I will put my name on it.
Yeah. I'm jumping around a little bit, but Dua Lipa has a book club.
Yeah. We do have to talk about that one. That one's fascinating. I just found out about it when I was researching these.
Yes, I'm thrilled. So she started it, a Service 95B book club.
Yep.
Is that it?
I think so.
Okay.
Or that B might be a typo. I don't know. Service 95 something.
She started in June 2023.
Yeah, last summer.
Yeah. I'll join.
Right?
I'm in.
I know. Well, and I really love her focus, which is about representing writers from all across the globe. I think she has a really international following. And so some of the books she's picked are awesome. 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner.
Trust by Hernan Diaz, which is one of my favorites.
A favorite recent read for you. Yeah. And you loved other Hernan Diaz too.
I did. Yeah. He's a great author.
And these, you know, are authors from all around the world. And I'm just really proud of her. I was like, okay, Dua Lipa, like giving us some literary flex.
Yep.
That is a really cool one. Another musician, Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine,
Also
evidently,
new to me.
yes, but evidently this book club has been going since 2012. It's called Between Two Books. And I was like, I'm here for this, especially because some of her picks are like kind of fantasy-y.
I'm not cutting that out.
Oh no. I'm looking at my editor like, you're going to fix this later, right?
Nope, it was perfect.
Just leave me hanging. Great. So Piranesi by Susanna Clark. That is a fantasy I've always wanted to read. I've heard such great things. And I feel like now that I know it's a recent Florence Welch pick, maybe that does push me to pick it up a little bit sooner. I feel like that is the power, right? It is that influencer. I'm literally being influenced to pick that book up sooner by knowing, by knowing that this celebrity has their stamp on a book. And it's a book I already knew about and that I already wanted to read. And I'm like, ooh, maybe that just tips me over a little bit. So I think it's interesting, the psychology of how this works.
Also, like, okay, so Bellatrix, Emma Roberts, and Kara Treasis.
That one also sounds cool.
Started in 2017. One of their recent picks is Piglet by Lottie Hazel, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The Guest by Emma Klein is also an amazing one.
I know. And those are kind of like weirder literary ones that are like kind of suspenseful and quirky. And I feel like that is a cool, I'm like, okay, that makes me think of Emma Roberts differently too, if she's reading those books, because they're pretty highbrow. I mean, you know, for what you could put your stamp on.
Right.
And I mean like that in contrast to Read with Jenna. We're not snobs here. And I think all reading is valid, but I don't think I'm necessarily as motivated by a Read with Jenna stamp. That's Jenna Bush Hager. When I look at these titles, I was like, yeah, I'm not as excited about some of these.
Yeah.
They're a little bit lighter. Maybe they're just more mainstream and she's trying to make sure to keep a broad audience, but that stamp of approval is not quite as influential.
Did you know Jimmy Fallon had a book club?
Okay, we have to talk about this because someone came in and was like, do you have the Jimmy Fallon book club pick? And I was like, that's a new one. That's a new one to me. Not only do I not think I have that book, but I don't even know that he had a book club. Yeah. And so we did some Googling. And he actually used to have a book club a while back, and he just brought it back in March and did like a March Madness book bracket in celebration of March Madness, like the NCAA tournament. So he picked 16 books and put them in a bracket and then had, I think it was just Instagram voting, like his audience could vote, and it was just bracket style, winners go on to the next round. And it looked really cool. And I think like 1 million people ended up voting in this too. It was like a huge turnout. So I feel like it's a really good indicator of popularity. However, they didn't necessarily have to read all these books. I think they were voting mostly based on the cover and the description that he read. But it was really funny because some of them he was reading like the jacket or the blurbs, and the Roots would be playing like mood music, like improvising it behind him. So I feel like that
probably influenced a lot of.
It could have influenced it to be like, oh, the Roots played a cool song. I liked that book more. But I think that's really fascinating. So
some great titles on there. James was on there.
James was in the bracket. Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange.
Annie Bott, which I want to read.
That does. I know. I've been eyeing it. It's got a great cover. The Bullet Swallower looks really good to me. Grief is for People has been a bestseller recently. So he had a lot of great stuff on there. The two finalists that got voted on were How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin and Night Watching by Tracy Sierra. And then Night Watching ended up taking it. So then I go, after this customer asked me, I go to order this book. It is sold out everywhere. Like it went into reprints immediately after getting announced as the Jimmy Fallon pick, of course. It's like some mega influencer culture there. But we'll get it eventually. So there's lots of other celebrity book clubs out there that we did not cover. Emma Watson had one for a while. Emma Watson's was called Our Shared Shelf, and it was a feminist book club, but then she basically kind of let that go and people curate it separately from her. It's kind of just like an online community now.
And if you're looking for a new book club, you can join Book Pop's book club.
Yes. We don't have a name for it yet. Book Pop Book Club is kind of a mouthful. It's not great. Maybe that could be, you guys could let us know. What do you think we should call the Book Pop Book Club?
Love that.
But for this season, and we're not going to do like a monthly thing. We want to do it by season. So
Very chill.
it's going to be chill.
Read.
You are going to have all summer to read a book that everybody's talking about right now. We both want to read anyway. So we were like, let's make it the book club pick. And then we can talk with everybody about it. And that is Funny Story
By Emily Henry.
The new Emily Henry. She drops one like every April. This one's coming out on April 23rd. And we are very excited to read it.
Yep. It'll be my second Emily Henry. I just finished Happy Place not too long ago.
But you liked it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
She has a certain way of building tension.
It's great.
It's so good.
And I have read all the Emily Henry, to no one's surprise, and loved them all for different reasons.
Yes.
Maybe sometime we'll do like a special rankings episode of Emily Henry's. Maybe that could be part of the book club wrap up once we actually all read Funny Story.
And I catch up on
And you catch up.
the rest of them.
But we want to hear from you of what you think of Funny Story. So if you read it this summer, we're going to have a form you can fill out where you can like rate it, rate the character development, rate the romance, rate the spice.
Yes.
You can give us your own feedback and review in your own words. And then we're going to compile all that data. We're going to see how people liked it. We're going to read some reviews and we're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of people I think are going to read Funny Story anyway. And then it's fun to kind of gather everyone's thoughts in one place.
Love to know what everybody thinks about it.
So I'm excited for it to be our season 1 book club pick for Book Pop. We hope you will all read along with us and tell us what you think. Bye.
Bye. You can find all these titles and more at lakecitybooks.com/bookpop. You can listen to Book Pop on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and at Speak.Studio/bookpop. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and review. For a behind-the-scenes look, find us on YouTube at Book Pop the Podcast. Comment on today's episode by sending us an email at bookpoppodcast@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Book Pop the Podcast.